Hey, I'm live. Good morning. All right. So today is, what day is today? I think today's the 25th of January, 2019. And I just want to say welcome to the show. um, let's see. Today is Saturday, and I've got amazing plans today. Yep. I think, as I mentioned previously, I'm going to Universal Studios today. Yeah, of course. Why not? Let's go celebrate. Let's go celebrate with some Harry Potter and The Simpsons and all kinds of good stuff. Let's go celebrate with and go on some roller coasters. Why not? I hear today in Hollywood's going to be warm. It's going to be 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm like, wow, I have amazing feelings about, I have these wonderful feelings about anticipating this summer. This summer is going to be amazing, truly amazing. It's going to just be, I think it might be one of the best summers I've ever had. Serious. So I'm forecasting into the future and predicting what it might be like. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know. I've got so many amazing ideas in my head about what the future's bringing this year that I'm just stunned. And I'm so looking forward to it. And of course, I'm also looking forward to today and enjoying every moment by moment. So I'm right after this podcast, I'll be traveling to Hollywood, California. And let's see, what else am I going to do? I don't know. That'll take all day long. So I have also got some plans tomorrow to make some cupcakes and to study for my welding class. And by the way, yesterday I went to a yoga session at Allen Hancock College Santa Maria campus. They have a building that they use to host the yoga sessions in. It's like a dance studio. And it's the same dance studio that the actors, the PCPA actors, the ones who act at the Solvang Theater and the Marion Theater, rehearse in. And it was such a cool place, such an awesome building. It was neat to see all those actors rehearsing their parts and singing and walking around in costume. It's pretty neat. Well, maybe they weren't in costume, but but I certainly did like being in that atmosphere. It was an electric atmosphere, let me tell you. And so happy. It got me to thinking about how I think I want to take some acting classes in the future. And for me, what it's going to be about is committing to being able to memorize dialogue. And, I've been committed to focusing on improving my memory for the last few years. And I think that being an actor, or at least trying to do a little bit of acting, could help me improve my memorization skills. And I also think that, something I also really enjoy doing is dancing. And I also love the way my voice sounds when I'm singing. So, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've got this really mellow bass voice that at least I like listening to. I like hearing myself talk. Oh yeah, I sure do. And so I'm thinking, yeah, I really need to spend more time around theater and around actors. And I am, and you know what? I really do want to get better at improvising, right? Improvisation. I think that sounds really challenging to me. And if I could pull together a few characters as an improv artist, I think that would be cool. That would be neat. So I'm already getting excited about the possibility of maybe taking an acting class next semester, or maybe during the summer semester. Who knows? I don't even know if that's a possibility. So Anyway, I'm excited about being in that venue. Oh, by the way, I enjoyed my yoga class. I had a really good time. I think that I'm going to really enjoy this yoga thing. And here's the reason why. There are a lot of reasons, in fact. And let me just go through them one by one. One of the main reasons that I'm thinking about liking yoga is that it's going to help me stretch my muscles. I think having flexibility is great, is really important when it comes to reducing the possibility of injury. I think a lot of injuries happen when there's like this jarring force that takes our muscles out of range, just slightly out of range, maybe by a quarter inch or a half inch. And that is enough to damage a muscle. If a muscle is too taut and is not liable, uh, you know, is not willing to flex, not willing to stretch, because just it's not accustomed to stretching. I think injuries can be created that way. I think that's how a lot of injuries are created, that are produced. That's how you end up stretching, pulling a muscle. Partly, you know, a good part of damaging a muscle is, maybe sort of tensing the muscle, the intensity of the contraction. But there are other ways to damage a muscle, and part of that has to do with stretching. Um, and so, yeah, I'm thinking about how stretching in yoga can be a injury prevention strategy. So that I think is one of the key elements of why I'm liking yoga. Another part of me liking yoga is, well, one of the things that I realized in the yoga class is that yoga for me was relatively easy last night, partly because I'm in such good shape. I've got muscle. I really have quite a lot of muscle. And these static poses that the instructor was asking us to engage in, these isometric poses, were not really a problem for me because um, I my activity levels are so high that I'm easily able to support these static poses. That's not the case for a lot of the other people in the class. The other people, a lot of them are in not as good shape as I am, and they were struggling with a lot of the static poses. I know that the instructor would ask for, say, to hold a certain pose for 10 seconds, and a lot of people were falling out of the pose simply because they just didn't have the strength to maintain the pose. Their muscles weren't healthy enough to do the work, and mine were. I struggled a little bit in a few of the isometrics, but that's good. That's what I want. I want to get better and stronger, and I didn't expect to do as well as I did. In fact, I was expecting the class to be a little more challenging, but it turned out it wasn't a problem. And I think a significant reason for that is that I was in such good health. My body is spinning like a top right now. I'm, charging forward on all 8 cylinders. And this yoga class was sort of an incidental, even though it lasted an hour. Even though it was my first yoga class, physically, from my muscle standpoint, it was rather incidental, and that's great. That's not to say I'm not feeling a little sore today. I am. I was stretching my hamstrings in ways that I don't usually stretch my hamstrings, and so I've got a good feeling of charge in my hamstrings now. And so I'm really pleased about this outcome. There are other reasons I like yoga. It's a kind of activity that you can do with other people. A lot of the exercise that I do on a regular basis, running, swimming, bicycling, weightlifting, these are all individual sports. They're not a team sport. And I can see, for me, yoga is kind of like a team sport. I'm cautious about team sports in general because here's the thing. I've heard way too many stories about people getting injured, and I've been injured myself through reckless horseplay on the on the court, so to speak. And it's easy for a lot of accidental for people to sort of step on your toes or uh, send you the ball when you're not looking. A lot of ways to injure yourself on the court in any kind of team play scenario. But the neat thing about yoga is that it's team play and it's individual at the same time. So there's this social aspect that I think I've been missing from my workouts. And so that's another reason why I'm liking my yoga class. I like the social part. I like the part that, it helps me prevent injury. I think those are the two main parts. And then there's that other part I talked about, and that is just the general satisfaction, the general gratification I get from expressing the strength of my physical body. There's a sense of accomplishment, right? I'm meeting certain standards, and I like to achieve. And I think yoga, being in that kind of environment can be helpful. I think yoga is kind of an environment that's conducive for people who want to achieve. I know that sounds even contradictory, but there's a lot of room for progressive improvement in yoga. It's a progressive, it's in the sense that there are lanes where one can improve, right, through certain poses. I mean, each pose offers an opportunity for improvement. And what would be interesting if I could add some objective measure to yoga, that would be something that would appeal to me as a numbers person, as an engineering person, as a person who likes to catalog and sort of track my progress. So I'll try to think of a way that I can apply numbers and measurement to my yoga so I can make the kind of improvements that I hope to make. So that's cool. So yeah, I'm really excited about yoga, and I'm so glad I'm taking the class, and I'm glad I'm taking it once a week. It'll basically, it's asking me, inviting me to do this practice once a week, at least once a week. And if I can carry that practice on throughout the rest of my life, I think that'll be a significant benefit to me. Absolutely. All right, cool beans, man. We're making awesome progress. Yeah. So one thing that I thought we could go over is my book notes really for MJ Ryan's book, Attitudes of Gratitude. The subtitle is How to Give and Receive Joy Every Day of Your Life. Oh, wow. What a wonderful goal, right? So I figured that we go through the next quotation, and here it is. It's a quotation that I highlighted on page 124. When we practice no matter what, we are no longer hooked by expectations to externals, other people, other events, but are free to choose what we will focus on to make us happy. So this is a really critical point, a really critical idea. When we focus on no matter what, we are no longer hooked by expectations to externals. So, a lot of the times people do stuff for the reward, right? And the thing about reality is that sometimes reality delivers and sometimes it doesn't. And you know what? Just like with my yoga class, sometimes I succeed and sometimes I fail in the pose, right? I recognize weaknesses, and that knowledge is valuable. In fact, I just did it there. I just did it no matter what. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was almost instinctual. It was just when I said that I learned about my weaknesses, I was playing no matter what. I was playing the no matter what game. That no matter whether you win or lose, that I'll gain some learning that I can apply later and add it to my practice, and sort of apply a little bit of mental discipline to that area, and could make improvements. So it's a hopeful statement. Playing this no matter what. Basically, the other sort of like, I'm going to contrast that view with another view, and that is, sometimes I don't make my poses, and so what that does is it sort of leaves me it sort of with just that interpretation that I don't make my poses. That sort of leaves me at an emotional stopping point, and it's not as good as an emotional stopping point. It's actually somewhat of a downer, like I'm failing at the poses, right? But there might be a way to sort of resurrect that thought to help us understand to help us figure out, there might be a way that would help us figure out sort of a better way to approach the problem. Anyway, this no matter what game, I think it's a useful communication game, a useful thinking game. And thankfully, I've integrated no matter what into my daily life. It's automatic. It's fairly automatized. This idea that we can get relief from our expectations about the future. That no matter what happens, we can be happy, which is really saying something. Part of what causes fear and concern, sadness and loss, is when things don't go well. And playing the no matter what game helps us become aware of where we win, right? It's about acknowledging where we win, noticing it, meditating on where we win. And that's important because, it helps us figure out what needs we've met. It's actually kind of interesting. It's interesting that we might have needs that we are meeting but don't recognize. In fact, it's kind of funny. People do it all the time. People have a whole pot or basket of needs that they've met, and they don't focus on the fact that they've met those needs. They focus on all the unmet needs. They may have a basket of needs that they haven't met, or maybe just have partially met. And because they're focusing on lack and what they don't have, they're focusing on the scarcity all the time. It brings down their moods, and it affects their attitudes, and also their judgment gets skewed. I happen to think that people who have a positive disposition are generally able to make better decisions because they're not grasping at certain values, right? To meet those needs, they're doing less grasping, and there's less desperation in their actions because they recognize where their needs have been met. And they're asking for things out of joy and not necessarily out of need. In fact, that's actually a really strong distinction. I'm going to ask for things from the perspective of maximizing joy, not reducing loss. Do you see how critical that is? Excuse me. So yeah, ask for things from the perspective of maximizing joy, not reducing loss. Because the fallback position, if people say no to your requests, when you just want to maximize joy, then you're already in a joyful state. You know, it's just one option that when you receive a no, keeps you at the level of joy that you're at. But if you've got a perspective of reducing loss, I mean, you're already sort of losing. And if someone says no, then that starts you on even a path of more loss. So yeah, I think how you ask for something is important. I think you want to ask for something in the midst of abundance to increase abundance, instead of to sort of minimize loss. Anyway, that insight means something to me. I'm not sure if it means anything to you. Okay. So what is another quote? Another quote that I highlighted was on page 130. An asset focus, noticing and appreciating what does not need healing, is an incredibly powerful tool for creating connection, fostering creative thinking, and overcoming obstacles. If everything that is happening is right, how is this right? What's right about the fight with your mother, the fender bender, your aching back? Without negating what's wrong, ask yourself what function or need the event is serving. So I really like this asset focus. Yeah. Really, life is about sort of recognizing and appreciating what you've got. Focusing on what doesn't need healing, of what is going right in your world. And even talking about what is going right in your world when it is apparently not going well. Sometimes negative events serve you in certain ways. In fact, they serve you by building your strengths, by building your virtues, by building your characters, by teaching you things, helping you learn. Yeah. And you know what? There's gratification in that. Those are virtues, right? When you're developing a virtue, developing your character, sort of recognizing what's important to you, recognizing what's giving meaning and purpose and passion to your life. Even when things are going poorly, you can still gain these benefits and derive happiness from that process. In a way, you're sort of picking up the pieces. Picking up the pieces is a virtuous act. There's virtue in that. In fact, virtues like patience almost define good character traits. Yeah. And you know what? There's happiness that can be derived from that. Even just the act of trying, just trying is a virtue. There's hopefulness, idealism, optimism behind trying, right? There's energy behind trying. There's often goodwill, generosity behind trying. And that you tried is virtuous in and of itself. And that fact alone can be the source of extreme amounts of happiness, even if you've tried and failed. Yeah. Yeah. And, I also want to talk about this word failure. I don't like using the word failure. It's a word that I think it's often too harsh. It's extreme, right? It's black and white thinking is what it is. And the fact is, I've already recognized that there's no such thing as failure. And even true failure is just a partial failure. There's no giant Frankenstein on-off switch to success. You're not either successful or not successful. It depends on what perspective you take. And quite often, failures or successes are partial, right? We often never get 100% of what we ask for, even when we succeed. And, if you think about it, if you think about sort of like the sliding scale of failure and success, you are always successful to some degree. At some level, everything you do is successful. Of course, in the same way, you can also say that everything you do is a failure. But here's the thing. One is demotivating. The other one is motivating. The one gives you less energy for future action. Another gives you more energy. And so it makes more sense for your long-term benefit to focus on the idea that, you're always successful, even if it's only partially successful. Your success is continual, absolutely continual, because you're always partially succeeding. I mean, the only true total loss, I was about to say that the only true total loss would be in death, but that is actually not the case. Even people in death, in fact, some people, their deaths represent the ultimate accomplishment of their life, the ultimate glory. And in fact, that happens all the time. So even death is not as final as as one might imagine, and certainly doesn't necessarily represent a loss. In fact, all the people who are taking their last breath are engaged in a virtuous act. That is the striving and the hope of taking that breath, right? The trying to take that very last breath. That's a heroic act. And it's something that I honor. There's a lot of virtue in that struggle. And anyway, I admire that about human beings. We're always trying. Okay, very good. Well, I wanted to try something different. I'm reading another book by MJ Ryan, and I've been reading books using the Kindle app on my smartphone lately. And so, of course, with my Kindle app, I can highlight passages of the books that I'm reading. And instead of reading off the passages using the paper, I'm going to read off the passages using my smartphone. And we'll see where that takes us. So I'm reading this new book by MJ Ryan. And let me see if I can get the title. The title of the book is called The Happiness Makeover, Teach Yourself to Enjoy Every Day by MJ Ryan. I am really enjoying MJ Ryan's works lately. And I'm excited about finding this author, and I'm loving pretty much everything I'm reading by her right now. And so I'm real pleased by it. So anyway, I figured that I'd go through some of the notes that I'm taking in this book. And so one quote that I highlighted from this book is on page 2. And her thought that I thought was fairly significant was this quote: "How would our lives change if we really thought that reality is fabulous?" I think that's a very interesting question. How would our lives change if we really thought that reality is fabulous? It's kind of interesting. The way we view life in our society is basically we have traditions, intellectual traditions, cultural and societal traditions. And people walk through their lives as they're walking around town or walking through stores with certain relaxed expressions. And these are social norms. And sometimes I get the sense that not everyone is appreciating just how fabulous reality is every moment. And, I know all the time I'm blown away by just the awe of the moment, the beauty of essentially every landscape that I see, right? I walk out of my door from my apartment and I'm looking over the balcony and I'm seeing the world around me at elevation, and I can appreciate the ravens that are flying by, the homes. Some homes have chimneys and they're burning firewood, right, in their fires. And I can see the smoke. I can smell the smoke, which to me smells pretty good. I'm a lover of the campfire smoke smell. Um, I also sense the crispness of the morning, right? The chill in the air because it's early morning. And, there's just so much to appreciate about every moment. And I think it truly is true that every moment is fabulous. And not just every moment, but like you said, that reality is fabulous. A lot of life is sort of recognizing just how amazing it is. And anyway, so how would our lives change if not only that we sort of acknowledged that reality was fabulous, but we expressed that reality was fabulous? Reality is pretty fabulous. The very fact that I'm alive and conscious at this very moment is a miracle of a miracle. I mean, it's just, I can't believe it. I'm living pain-free with my body, resting on this beautiful couch. And I don't know, I'm super happy. I'm talking to the young woman who I love the most in the world. That's you, Emily. I mean, what could be better? Honestly, what could be better? So reality is really quite fabulous. And, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a goal for myself to do a better job of expressing to myself and others just how fabulous reality is. Just do a better job. And not only that, not only expressing it to others and expressing it to myself, but also just appreciating the fact of the moment and how amazing it is. How every moment is just a little miracle, a little present. I mean, the present truly is a present. Anyway, how would my life change? I think my life would change for the better. It's kind of funny. This whole idea of unmet needs, right? Oh man. The idea it's kind of funny. You know, I mean, think about my arm. How much is my arm worth? It's worth. Is it worth $1 million? It's worth more than that. In fact, it's priceless. I've got these amazing, precious arms, and you know, every moment to me is priceless. Has almost infinite value, and yet I still find time to complain about the little hurts in my life, right? The little slings and arrows that come by my way. Traffic, maybe that holds me back by a whole 30 seconds, right? Or maybe I'm in a big traffic jam for an hour. It doesn't matter. Those small unmet needs are almost insignificant compared to the amazingness of being alive in the moment. I'm just recognizing just how petty a lot of my ideas about unmet needs are, and how I struggle with them. So, it's interesting how bountiful and abundant and paradisaic our lives are compared to what we spend a lot of time complaining about and worrying about and being upset about. It's almost like the sun. It's our lives are almost as amazing and awesome as the sun is. And the things that are not working on our lives are like, I don't know, some asteroid orbiting the sun, in terms of just how minuscule those items are. Here I am. I'm a fairly intelligent guy. I've got an amazing work life, an amazing recreational life. And you know what? There are a few areas that could use some improvement, but all is not lost. It's really intriguing how I make myself upset over so many small problems. This recognition is really, I think, impactful to me. I'm feeling impacted right now. And I'm feeling fairly transformed. It's true. It's true. I think, yeah, this quote, this MJ Ryan has really got her finger on something important. What would our lives be if we could truly recognize the fabulousness of our lives? I was mentioning earlier in podcasts before, or video blogs before, that human beings today live lives that are even more fabulous than the kings of yore, right? The kings in the past, in the Middle Ages, with all of their banquets and musicians and I don't know. Our lives are so much better than the kings of the past. I truly live like a king. I rule my own kingdom of one in this world. I've got amazing freedom and amazing health, mental and physical health. And I am truly like a shining star in the universe. Just like everyone else is. And for me to complain about the minor slings and arrows that life shoots at me every once in a while is basically laughable. It's really quite laughable. And boy, I'm so glad that I recognize that. Quotation on page number 5 of this book. Happiness is its own reward. Happiness is its own reward. So I think that's an interesting recognition, a fine recognition. Happiness is its own reward. The more mental acts that you exercise or engage in that relate to improving your own happiness, well, you are rewarded pretty much instantaneously for those acts. Absolutely. Um, any one of those acts can set you on a path of greater happiness. Let's say you're happy on a scale from 1 to 10 and you're at a level 6 or 7. And let's say you spend 5 minutes meditating or engaged in some peaceful thought, happiness producing thought. In 5 minutes, you get immediate return on your investment. And that return might last 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It might even last the whole day as you recollect the enjoyable thought that you effortfully attempted when you tried to promote your own happiness. So yeah, it's like this upward spiral, right? Anyway, this is actually working out pretty well. So I'm happy about that. So I think that what we could do next, Emily, is talk a little bit about the question and answer period. Have our question and answer period. And I'll answer some questions on my Kindle ebook. So I'll answer question number 214. Who is your favorite talk show host? Okay, so right now I've got 2 favorite talk show hosts. Number 1, and this is a guy who I pretty much watch nearly every day, is Stephen Colbert. I think it's the Tonight Show or Late Night with Stephen Colbert. I think that's the name of his show. And for the most part, I like it for its political commentary. His team of writers I find them really funny, and Stephen Colbert is just a very pleasing personality. He's sharp and witty and imaginative, and I like his delivery and I like his style. And so I'm a big fan of Stephen Colbert right now. In fact, I pretty much watch Stephen Colbert instead of watching the news because, I can get the news through Colbert. I know it's tweaked and slanted and biased and all that stuff, in the spirit of fun and humor. But I like it because it kind of takes the edge off. There are 2 ways to understand stories about the world around you. One, you can do it from a humorously, or you can do it seriously. And I think gathering information humorously is probably a better way to go. And another talk show host that I really enjoy is, I was about to say Jimmy Kimmel. I like Jimmy Kimmel. I'm fine with Jimmy Kimmel. He's not one of my favorites. I mean, he is one of my favorites, but he's not I don't watch Jimmy Kimmel all the time. There was another Jimmy Fallon. It's interesting that the two talk show hosts at night basically have the same first name, Jimmy. Anyway, I really like Jimmy Fallon. I think Jimmy Fallon's awesome. In fact, in a way, I think that Jimmy Fallon and I have a lot in common in terms of our personality type. Although I think also that Jimmy Fallon is probably a genius. He's a comedy genius in my mind. And I think he's also what I'd call a gentle genius and an optimistic genius, and a genius for optimism. I really like his style, and I do seek to emulate it. I think he's one of my happiness heroes. And I like Jimmy Fallon. I have a lot of respect for what he does and the hard work that he puts into his job, and just the skill he's able to perform his job in. Of course, he does it every day, every weekday, for hours and hours on end. So I'm glad he's found something that he loves, a work that he loves. And Really happy to watch his program here and there. I tend to watch it on YouTube because I actually don't have a television set. But I guess those are my favorite talk show hosts. So I'm going to say right now, just in terms of the amount of time that I spend watching those talk show hosts, my number one talk show host is Stephen Colbert. My number two talk show host is Jimmy Fallon. And then there's the rest, which get recognized. All right, what's the next question? Question number 215. Are you a traveler or a homebody? Explain. So I wouldn't call myself a traveler. Today, there's so many opportunities to travel, and so many people take advantage of those opportunities to travel. Traveling all over the world, there are people who've been to every continent on the planet. Those are travelers. I'm not a traveler. I think I'm more of a homebody. But that's not to say I don't like to travel. It's just the places I travel are pretty specific. Like I'll travel to neighboring cities for day trips, and I'll travel to Los Angeles. That's about as far afield for a day trip that I go these days. And that's good enough for me. For me, it's just about novelty, right? It's about experiencing something new. Maybe it's also experiencing the same old thing, but in a different way. And, that makes the most sense to me. Now, I don't travel in the sense that I'm on a plane every weekend. I don't travel to Los Angeles I don't travel to Las Vegas or fly to Washington, D.C. or fly to Florida. I think I prefer the more economical route of just driving. I can get to LA using only $15 of gas. And the trip back, again, just another $15. So for $30, I can have an amazing adventure in one of the most awesome cities in the world. In the future, what I might do, which is a possibility, is I might drive to a place like San Francisco for a 3-day weekend, something like that. There's a possibility I could do that this summer. That's my kind of travel. That's my kind of trip. I might take a road trip out to New Mexico, right? And so we'll see. I think I'm mostly into road trips. I'm not so much into using airplanes to travel. Even though I recognize that traveling in an airplane is rather safe, I like traveling by car. And I do hope to make my car transportation more safe. I can't wait till autonomous vehicles start coming onto the scene so that I can really reduce my risk when it comes to traveling in vehicles. That would be nice. So in the meantime, though, I will just have to comfort myself by, being the most aware person on the road as I drive, and try to use safety practices that help preserve my health and life. Okay. So yeah, I guess I'm more of a homebody, and the answer to that question is that I'm more of a homebody and I take daily trips. Okay, question number 216. Do you enjoy a good debate or prefer keeping the peace? Well, I absolutely enjoy keeping the peace, and I like to have what I'd call arm-in-arm partnership, exploring an idea from two different perspectives or from many different perspectives. That's how I like to have my discussions. For me, they are explorations, joint explorations, and there's no combative, you win, I win, or the wrong versus right type mentality. I think that is sort of a shallow and limiting way to frame a conversation. And really, debates aren't just conversations, but they have a frame around them, right? Like there's the possibility of women winning or convincing someone to change their opinion, which, in my view, almost never ever happens. I mean, it happens every once in a while, but uh, the human brain, uh, our minds are interested in seeking out internal consistency, and it's self-reinforcing. And my brain will dismiss evidence like that if I want to try to prove a point that I'm relying on somehow. So, there's a lot of the human brain is not what I'd call a computerized logic machine. A lot of the time, decisions it makes are based on subjective judgments. It's just the way our brain is. And, so far it's worked out okay over the last 200,000 years of human beings and our time on this planet. So I'm going to start wrapping things up here, I guess. I want to let you know that earlier, I want to let you know that I am satisfied about the way things are going between us. I know things could be going better, but they can always be going better. Things could be going a lot worse too. And I'm so glad that things are not going worse between us. I'm willing to wait until you are ready to visit with me face to face. And, that may take time. It may take a few years for you to develop a sense of confidence around me. And it's okay. It's awkward. I recognize the inherent awkwardness of doing things for the first time, right? That is meeting together. I'm referring to. Sometimes it's awkward, and it's awkward because we just don't do it very often. We don't have a lot of practice doing it, and that is getting together and talking face to face, one on one. That's okay. I'm going to be here for a long time. I'm going to be living for a good 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. And so there's plenty of time to develop a deep, abiding relationship. One that is, where we rely on each other and are challenged by each other. And, it's happening right now. In fact, now that I think about it. So anyway, I'm glad things are the way they are, and I'm hopeful and optimistic about things getting better and better and better and better. And that's all we need, right? A progressive track where we are making progress into the future. And so that's what it is. In the meantime, I think what we can do together is share with one another how we like to play, share with one another how we like to enjoy ourselves, and be content with that, at least for now. I know I'll be trying to do that, letting you know how I like to play and enjoy myself. And I'll be playing, in fact, today. I plan to go to Universal Studios and get on some roller coasters and walk around amongst people who are enjoying themselves. I'm realizing these days that one of the things that brings me joy and happiness is just being around other people who are being around other people who are having a good time. That's something that I love to do. I think it's because those emotions are catchy. They're I'm 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 sort of mirroring with my mirror neurons the fun that they're having. And it affects me in a really positive way. And I'm just so thankful that I've recognized that. I like being around people who are having the time of their lives, right? I like being around people who are having massive amounts of fun and expressing their joy and appreciation for the things around them. I love being around people like that. And I guess that's a big part of the reason why I like going to amusement parks. And not only that, I also get a good workout. I get to do a lot of walking in the sunshine and the bright lights and just enjoy the day, right? And then be amused by people who are enjoying what they do, right? So, and I'm talking about actors and actresses and performers, you know, people who are just doing their jobs, right? And they're doing so in a happy atmosphere. So anyway, well, let me end my video today by saying that I love you, that I cherish you, and that I wish only the best for you. And that I hope you're doing well your freshman year of high school. Yeah, you're already halfway through it. Fantastic. I'm sure you're really doing amazingly well and excelling in so many ways. And I'm so glad that myself, we've been able to provide this amazing life for you. You live in an amazing city, Lompoc, small town, adjacent to large open spaces, which I hope you're taking advantage of. That is the Burton Mesa Ecological Reserve. And also, you're going to school, Cabrillo High School, which is an amazing high school, really stunning high school. And where you will be getting an amazing education. You have a mom and dad and stepdad, I'm certain, who are advocates for education and learning and developing your mind, and your emotional self, getting really deep into your psychology, and at least I am interested in that, your goodwill and self-development and growing and unfolding as a young woman. And just, I can imagine just how exciting that is. And because I'm involved in it too. Anyway, I just want to say that I'm really proud of the life that your mom and I have built for you. And I'm excited for your future. And I'm really optimistic about not only you this week and this month, but also over the next few years as you grow into a sophomore student, a junior student, and a senior high school student, and then off to college. I'm just so pleased to know that you're on track and you're taking care of yourself and you're taking actions that'll benefit you in the future. It just makes me proud. I'm a proud father. I'm a proud dad. And I really couldn't be any more joyful than to know that my beloved daughter is happy and healthy and thriving and, going to a good school, in a great town, in a great state, in a wonderful country, really, truly, with other wonderful people in this amazing world that we live in this community of Homo sapiens. It's great on this third planet from the sun, in this amazing galaxy, the Milky Way, in this corner of our universe. Things are going so well from an intergalactic standpoint. Absolutely. So with that, Emily, let me sign off. I want to wish you a wonderful day today. I know I'm going to go have a rockin' good day. Rock and roll, man. And I hope you do the same. Take care of your mom. And again, I love you. Bye-bye.